Hello and welcome to Exiles. Today I have a video I'm making very excited about because it solves a problem I've had for a long time that I didn't know how to solve. How do I sustain my life pool if I'm using Zealot's Oath and I have a bunch of regen for my ES pool as a spell-based build and I can't get like life leech easy? For example, I'm playing a low life Righteous Fire Guardian. This is a build I've wanted to make for many years and I keep coming back to the same problem, which is I can't get a good way to solve my life sustain if I need to cast skills with my life pool, or for example, I need coruscating elixir that turns off my righteous fire because it makes my life go to 1, and then if I do recoup, there's a delay for monsters to hit me to turn my righteous fire on, or there's a delay with setting up a skill like Armageddon Brand or something that's hitting the enemy to leech to then get my life back on. There's awkwardness, there's friction to it. And on top of that, with the rework to Shavron's Revelation, this ring I really want to use because how good it can be for something like a low life Righteous Fire Guardian. But then if I'm disabling my mana regen and I can't do like life tap or sustain that way, how do I make this work? Another issue with Righteous Fire is the best links for Righteous Fire are using something like life tap, which you have to proc with a life tap skill to get the damage multiplier from life tap and the damage multiplier from something like Swift Affliction. How do you get this to work? Well, the solution I have found, and not I have found, it is 100% in credit due to a comment I had on my video recently from a guy named Ryan, who said he was using Eternal Youth to sustain his life pool. And I thought, that's kind of genius. So what is Eternal Youth? Why is this a solution? So what happens is, if you have Eternal Youth, you're separating the damage from your life, or you're changing the recharge to apply to your life pool, but the recharge never ends if you don't take damage to your life pool. So because we're an ES-based build, and we have all damage, can't bypass our ES, because we have, for example, this is a scuff setup, I'm using Esh's Visage, makes it so cast damage won't bypass. Point is, if we don't take damage to our life pool, we will sustain via recharge, because the recharge never turns off if you don't take damage, and casting a skill or spending your life doesn't count as taking damage. This also opens up the possibility to do things like sacrifice life and still sustain the life pool if you did, for example, a Wrathpith Globe, which is something else I'd want to incorporate in builds, and I thought, like, how can I sustain the sacrificial life cost, stuff like that. I didn't have a good solution for. This solves that as well. Now, this is particularly exciting for me because in my head, I have a plan for a really, really thick Giga Chad RF Low Life Guardian. This is a build archetype that got me really involved, or really in liking and being infantilized with. Infantilized, that's probably not the word. But point is, infatuated. Infatuated might be the word I'm looking for. With Righteous Fire builds of going like this huge HP pool, really tanky, really thick, and this enables me to go for something like Ivory Tower, go for a crazy energy shield amount, get a really thick HP pool, or EHP pool, because it's a huge amount of ES, and also get crazy benefits from, for example, Guardian getting the really big, thick amount of armor from having a huge life pool you're reserving to get a huge ES pool. That's how Ivory Tower works. And, for a long time, RF Guardian has been really, really lackluster, I would say, in comparison to other options. It has fell by the wayside, in my opinion. And this, I think, opens it up to that possibility of, once again, becoming just an absolute killer of a build. And I'm just making all this video to say, Eternal Youth is pretty cool and a great way to solve stuff if you have a life cost or a life drain in your build where you're an energy shield build. If you're running by Eternal Youth, this is a great solution, and this solves a problem that I've had in a lot of energy shield builds. So for those of you who want a good way to solve your life sustain and don't really care about the recharge per se, for example, me as a Righteous Fire build, I'm never going to benefit from the recharge because I'm always taking damage to the energy shield pool. But if I put it on my life pool instead, the recharge is a huge benefit because it gives me sustain there. It also means we can go for things like life tap, and we don't necessarily need the mana sustain, and eventually I'll drop this mana flask and probably have life tap on the skills I am casting, like my Molten Shell, like my Armageddon Brand, stuff like that. But you get the idea of what I'm saying. Ultimately, this is a huge opener for the build I want to make, which is something I'm probably going to be doing in 3.2. I'm really excited about. It's something that I've come back time and time again in PoE, is to how can I make a really thick Giga Chad RF Low Life Guardian. And I've always come into this problem, which is how do I deal with the life cost? How do I deal with some of these issues? And this solves the most important problem that usually was the reason where I said, no, I'm not going to end up doing it. Now, that being said, this is currently just a level 88 character in the Mayhem League. I'm not exactly gonna have the gear available to really put this together like I'd want to. I'm gonna try to farm a Brutal Restraint, try to put together an Ivory Tower, get a Scuff setup going to say, hey, this is something I might try to do in League sort of thing. But this was ultimately just a testing ground for me to try out this concept and see if I can make it work. And so that's the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and it gets your mind thinking about builds you might have had issues with. How do you solve the life sustain problem? This is a perfect solution if you're coming by this keystone because of how easily it solves that problem. And it's a problem I've had for many builds, and hopefully maybe you've had that problem too, and now it gives you inspiration for builds you want to play around that thing with solving that problem. So thanks to, once again, to Ryan, the guy who left this comment, dude. I couldn't appreciate you more, man. That is freaking clutch. And I'm so glad you made this point about the fact that you can just use Eternal Youth and put the recharge on your life pool, and that way you get sustain. It's such a good solution for the Zealot's Oath problem of not having life sustain. So thanks for watching, Exiles. Take care.